Welcome to your Monday night edition of the Pulse of Politics. I'm Aaron Jordan. Thank you so much for making us your nightly deeper dive into the world of politics as we're following a developing situation at the White House tonight. President Trump expected to address the nation in about a half hour from now at 9 o'clock. We are going to bring that to you live right here on Fox Local. He's expected to talk about his priorities for 2026, recap his accomplishments from this year. So not sure if he's going to be laying out any policy points into next year. We're really just kind of paying attention to that, tracking the wires, tracking the news feeds. So as we get closer to that, we are going to bring in Pulse anchor Roop Raj in just a little bit to really kind of cover that and recap that. But right now, we do want to zero in on the race for governor because, as you know, that is coming up next year, ready or not. And endorsements flying in fast and furious. We're bringing in Sam Robinson with Detroit 1 Million. Sam, good to see you. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Aaron. How are you?
I'm doing well. So you just got out of an election with the Detroit mayoral race.
I did.
Now you're getting ready to dive headfirst into the gubernatorial race, which we were talking before. That's going to have a lot of eyes on it, isn't it?
It certainly is. Republicans in the state of Michigan this week were getting upset. Garland Gilchrist, the lieutenant governor, received an endorsement from Ilhan Omar. He has been getting the endorsements from the leftist progressive types like Rashida Tlaib, some of the state legislators that you've seen come out and support him over Jocelyn Benson. Mike Duggan is also looking to pick up some more endorsements. He, really interestingly, was in New York on election night. A lot of people are wondering whether he's going to end up looking like how former Governor Cuomo looked on election night in New York.
Yeah.
I really wonder why Duggan was in New York on election night. I could guess why, but it's going to be interesting, Aaron. I think that people are really in their camps. I think Republicans are coalescing around John James right now, despite the fact that he might not really have the support of President Trump. You've heard President Trump ask, why is John James running for governor, threatening to give up his House seat? That Congress next year, all eyes are going to be on Michigan again in the Senate race.
Yeah.
Michigan is going to elect a new U.S. senator. We haven't elected a Republican senator, Aaron, since 1992. So
no, Spencer Abraham was the last one, and then Congresswoman Senator Stabenow unseated him in the election, which really throwing it back there. It's been primarily Democratic for Michigan, or completely Democratic for Michigan since that election. Of course, Senators Stabenow and Carl Levin. Carl Levin retired. We elected Senator Gary Peters. Now we're electing two more. And Congressman James was really making a name for himself running against Stabenow and Peters, of course, losing those two elections. Then he got elected to Congress and really had the support of President Trump. But we're really seeing how concerned President Trump is when it comes to that majority, that slim majority in the House.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to come to play. We will see whether or not he's going to sort of poo-poo John James's candidacy. Frankly, when I talk to Michigan Republicans, Tom Leonard and Eric Nesbitt, much like, in the conversations when I have with Democratic power brokers, Garland is right underneath Jocelyn Benson. When I talk to folks on the right about Tom Leonard, Eric Nesbitt, or Anthony Hudson are the other Republican gubernatorial candidates, they certainly put those folks underneath John James. So, we have three candidates, John James, Jocelyn Benson, and Mike Duggan, that a lot of people expect to see. But Garland Gilchrist is having his viral moments with Jasmine Crockett.
Yeah.
He's really trying to connect with voters, not just in Detroit, but in Dearborn, Hamtramck as well, talking about the war in Gaza, he says, as a genocide. Garland is coming out sort of as a leftist. A lot of folks viewed him as that prior to being selected by the governor as to be her LG. But his relationship with Whitmer, who has, of course, not endorsed him for governor to replace her, it's kind of interesting now looking at it. You really wonder what it's like.
You do, yeah. And it's an awkward position you have to imagine to be in for Governor Whitmer, having right now to choose between her Secretary of State, or the Secretary of State, I should say, and her Lieutenant Governor. And you have to wonder if at this point we're going to wait to see if Governor Whitmer waits until after the primary to endorse someone.
Yeah, I expect most of the Michigan Democrats are going to wait till after the primary. They're not going to certainly want to get in the middle of it. I'd imagine whoever comes out of the Democratic primary, whether it be Jocelyn Benson, the Secretary of State, or Lieutenant Garland Gilchrist, or Chris Swanson, he's the Genesee County Sheriff, who is also running for governor as a Democrat.
Yeah.
Whoever comes out, I expect all the candidates to support whoever it is that their party voters choose. Whether I can say that on the Republican side, I don't know. But it's going to be fun to see heading into June, July of next year what that ends up looking like. But again, people are pointing at these polls saying, Duggan isn't moving up. What is he going to start to say? Will he sort of try to capitulate even further to the right, as we've seen him do, or will we see him backtrack and sort of make pitches to left-leaning Democratic voters? A lot of people think he's going to take primarily from Southeast Michigan Democrats. It's a really interesting conversation when you think of Garland being from Detroit, Metro Detroit, and Jocelyn Benson having lived in Detroit for the past several decades.
A good number of our candidates are from the east side of the state.
They are.
Yeah, and Eric Nesbitt, of course, is currently state senator from Van Buren County. But you look at the name recognition, and a lot of these early polls, Sam, are simply about name recognition at this point. People recognize John James from when he ran for Senate. People recognize Mike Duggan because he's the mayor of Detroit, and you obviously think of the job that he's done with the city. And respectfully to Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist, more people know who the Secretary of State is than the Lieutenant Governor at this point. And so a lot of what we're seeing right now, I think, is name recognition. It'll be really interesting to see, once debates actually happen, who comes out of that.
Yeah, I think so too. And I would completely expect we're going to see a debate stage with Mike Duggan in the middle of the two candidates. It's going to be really interesting. Duggan has been talking about, look at both parties, just smear each other. They don't want to do anything for you. I'm not going to campaign against either party. I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do for you. I think, Aaron, people are really fired up in their political bases right now. I think Democrats are really upset at Republicans. I think Republicans are always upset at Democrats. And so, I think, again, he has been an underdog champion before. In 2013, he was a write-in candidate. Of course, he ended up serving several terms. 12 years later, here he is running for governor as an independent. So it's interesting stuff. All here in Michigan, man.
And I think what's going to be really fascinating, too, is how the strategy works of, hey, you're not happy with either side, neither am I. I'm not going to work for a political party. I'm going to work for you. Because we hear people say all the time, Sam, about how they're sick of political parties. They want a third-party option. But at the end of the day, that political party usually tends to win over everything else.
You know what else I hear a lot from voters is that they're not only sick of the political parties, they're sick of the corporate backers and the special interests. There's one candidate in this race that says he won't take corporate PAC money. That's Garland Gilchrist. Whether that is an issue that Democratic voters actually care about once it gets to the August primary next year, we'll see.
Well, and you see a lot of people on the left saying, get corporate money out of politics. And it's a bragging point for a number of the candidates that we're seeing. Hey, I don't take any corporate money. It's a grassroots campaign. So I'm going to be interested to see how that plays out as well.
Yeah, and if Garland wants to, go the DSA route, I've seen Zohran Mamdani style videos come out of the Duggan campaign in the last several weeks. The vertical video with the color graded, snappy edit style, but certainly in substance and policy, Garland has been the one to be closer to that.
And a lot of it is really embracing social media. And this is something I talked to Ethan Lloyd about a couple weeks ago. Ethan Lloyd, of course, social media expert that has run social media for multiple campaigns. And he really brought up a good point that it's not just the traditional media that these campaigns need to focus on. And you look at what President Trump did versus what Vice President Harris did in last year's campaign. President Trump embraced new media. He went on the Twitter or X now, I should say, interview with Elon Musk. He did various podcast interviews where Vice President Harris really didn't embrace that as much. And it really is about meeting the audience where it is right now.
Yeah. Garland went viral recently with his post in Detroit with Jasmine Crockett. She just announced a Senate run of her own. Jasmine Crockett might be the most popular political figure. I just told this to Roop. At Whole Foods in Midtown, I see a woman watching Jasmine Crockett on her phone in an interview, and I'm like, hey, did you know that she was just here with Garland? Her face lit up. She said, I had no idea. Oh, I love Jasmine Crockett. She's my favorite politician. A lot of pleasant things to say about that Texas Democrat up here, but Garland taking advantage of that in a TikTok video. I post a TikTok video, it goes absolutely viral on my Twitter page with, supporters, people saying that's cringy. It was a Nicki Minaj song that he was rapping along to. A lot of people pointed out, Nicki is firmly a MAGA Trump supporter now. So.
The irony of that, absolutely. But at that point too, in a way, it's whether people think it's cringy or whether people are supportive of it. In a way, that's getting his name out there no matter what, it's getting that name recognition up.
He doesn't have the same resources. He doesn't have the same level of name recognition, which is kind of interesting when you think about the fact that he's been the person underneath the governor, this ultra famous. We talk about Governor Whitmer as a presidential candidate.
Yeah.
A lot of people talked about Garland as, why wouldn't you run against Mary Sheffield for Detroit mayor? He, in his mind, thought, well, I'm already the LG. Why would I, not go for the position that's right above me? So that's what he's doing. Garland is a young guy. He's got a long career. If he does not defeat Jocelyn Benson or Chris Swanson in this primary, his career is not over.
No, and he'd be far from alone, too. You look at, no lieutenant governor in Michigan has successfully run for governor. And we saw that most recently with John Cherry, who was under Granholm, and Brian Calley, who was under Snyder. Like, it just, for whatever reason, it hasn't worked.
And what's interesting about that point, Aaron, is the fact that those governors actually did endorse
they did.
Those LGs. Whitmer has cited that fact in her, when people ask her, why are you not endorsing? She said, I don't want to.
Absolutely. Maybe not wanting to jinx anything at that point. Yeah. So as far as endorsements go, it's going to be really interesting, too, to see what role that those endorsements play as people really pay attention to this race and get ready to head to the polls.
Yeah, some of these state level lawmakers that you would expect to have supported Garland Gilchrist for some of his, rhetoric and what he's said surrounding hot button progressive litmus test items like corporate PAC money or the war in Gaza. Dylan Wagala, Emily Devendorf, Tanya Myers Phillips. She's a Detroit rep. These are all House representatives that are supporting Jocelyn Benson instead of Garland Gilchrist. There's been some chatter, why hasn't Garland reached out to this organization or this director of this? I talked to Wendell Anthony. He's the NAACP chair who endorsed Duggan. He told me that Garland didn't even reach out to him.
Interesting.
And so you wonder, is Garland trying to create his own coalition with, like-minded progressives? And he's perhaps leaving behind the black Democratic establishment that has ran Detroit. And I think a lot of people feel is going to continue running Detroit into this next city administration. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and you look at the moves that the incoming Sheffield campaign is making. She's named her vice mayor, deputy mayor, I should say. Various titles to keep track of here. And, of course, Police Chief Todd Bettison, really no surprises staying on at this point either.
Yeah, no, Mayor-elect Sheffield talked about Todd's work with the CVI groups. A few years ago, the city of Detroit gave $10 million to several organizations. I think 7 organizations got $700,000 to do what was described to us as pretty much like casework, social work in the hood. So,
wow.
These organizations are teaming up in high violent crime areas of the city. And they say that they've led to reductions of crime. The city and the police department have also championed these groups. Bettison was a part of that. And so, yeah, not surprising that he's staying on as chief.
A lot of news to cover. Sam Robinson doing a great job covering both the Detroit mayoral race and looking ahead to the governor's race. Looking forward to having you on again soon, Sam. Have a great holiday season, too.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And we are keeping a close eye on the White House tonight, where President Trump is expected to address the nation in about 15 minutes. Pulse anchor Roop Raj joining me next to talk about what we can expect and just get us ready for this big address. You're watching The Pulse of Politics. Don't go anywhere. And as you take a live look at the White House right now, we're waiting for President Trump to address the nation tonight. That address coming up in a little more than 10 minutes. We're going to stream it for you here on Fox Local. It'll also air on Fox 2. We welcome you back to the Pulse of Politics. I'm Aaron Jordan. We're bringing in Pulse anchor Roop Raj with us tonight. And Roop, the timing of this address is interesting because we're looking at it as the military buildup happens along Venezuela. There's a lot of speculation that it could be something about that. The White House has come out and said it's going to be looking at his accomplishments and his priorities ahead of 2026. And a lot of questions about where we're headed tonight at this point.
I would say all of that. Here's the bottom line. The last couple of times the president addressed the nation like this, it wasn't on one singular topic. It always seems to cover a myriad issues. And the reason is because this is a president who obviously watches carefully how the public perceives him. And right now, the perception of the economy and the performance of this country is not doing as well as perhaps he would like. And so his administration is making it very clear that this is, in a sense, going to be a progress report of where we're at. If you look at President Trump, is look at his social media account, something I do almost all the time. One of his last posts just from earlier today basically said the best is yet to come. The country is on the right track. We've had a great year and the best is yet to come. When you see the president posting that type of messaging on his social media account and then you hear about an address, sure, absolutely. Talking about the challenges with Venezuela, the blockades that he perhaps continues to plan to put up, the threat that he says Venezuela poses when it comes to drugs. even though those have been disputed by some. There's going to be talk of Venezuela. I would also assure you that when you have 45% of Americans, Republicans included, essentially saying that they're not satisfied with the direction of the economy, and you have President Trump, who has said in the past that it's a Democratic hoax to talk about the affordability crisis, yet this is the president who promised within the first day in office, you would see a flip in the economy and things would change. Certainly the affordability crisis is a real thing.
It is. And the economy was really a point of pride of his coming into this election, or this past election, where he was saying, blaming the Biden administration, and then by proxy, when Vice President Harris stepped into the race, blaming her as well for the economy. So now that the economy is still not where Americans want it to be, people are still struggling with affordability. Inflation is still an issue. You've got myriad issues that people are dealing with right now. He wants to try and spread some sort of optimism and say, hey, look, we're heading in the right direction. And we do know at this point that President Trump has demanded that Venezuela pay for seized U.S. oil assets after calling for a blockade. We've seen that blockade really formed around Venezuela right now. And just a couple of weeks ago, we saw an oil tanker seized from Venezuela as well. So tensions have really been ratcheting up with that country at this point.
You have two things going on with Venezuela. You have the oil, obviously, that you talk about that obviously could threaten the economy in Venezuela so badly that it's said that the president there, Maduro, is saying that if these blockades happen and they prevent the kind of oil trade that they need to do, that's a huge major export for Venezuela. If it was to hit Achilles' heel of Venezuela that hard with the oil, they're saying that they would see mass migration, people having to leave Venezuela. So this would really do some damage. And Nicolas Maduro, the president of Venezuela, is fully aware that blockades from the United States could hurt terribly their economy. So certainly, I think you're going to hear a mention of that. But I think it's also fair to mention that if you think about jobs, it's something that President Trump talked a lot about. And just kind of look at some numbers. You know, there was a point at which during the first 4 months of this year, this president was proud to say that employers were adding on average of more than 120,000 jobs a month. Mm-hmm. Think about that. First 4 months of the year, adding 120,000 jobs a month. And then if you look at what happened since those tariffs have been announced in April, monthly job gains have really averaged something like 17,000. And the unemployment rate has climbed from 4% in January to 4.6%. So the direction of where we're going right now clearly isn't something this president is going to be proud of, but it's something he has to take head on.
Yeah, and you look at, and obviously you say all the time, just so eloquently, Roop, but it's so true. Most Americans aren't impacted by the stock market, and it's clearly not the only indicator for the economy. But coming into the Trump presidency, there was a lot of optimism on Wall Street. And then you introduce the tariffs, and that really brings that U word that we always talk about when it comes to the economy, and that's uncertainty. Businesses, the stock market, nothing, the economy in general, it doesn't like uncertainty. And that's really what these tariffs have brought at this point, even though President Trump says, hey, the short-term pain is going to be worth the long-term gain.
But, you know, and you talk to economists, even those who are liberal economists, even those who are conservative economists, they'll all agree on one thing. Tariffs, there's always a long game with tariffs. It is not a short-term fix for everything.
Right.
And it certainly isn't there to boost the economy right away. It's to make things right in a trade imbalance. If you really think about it, if someone's ripping you off for a number of years and all of a sudden you want to go fix that, so you stop doing business with certain people or certain vendors in your business, obviously you're going to see a short-term effect. And that short-term effect isn't good. However, the long-term fix that President Trump is talking about is something that even people who are Democrats in the past have said, yes, tariffs are tools in the tool chest that can be used, but the effect of the tariff is not going to be felt right away. The president will likely talk about that here tonight in just about 6 minutes when he addresses the nation.
Yeah, and again, we will be carrying that both here on Fox Local and on Fox 2, and have a full recap coming up at 11:30. We're doing a bonus edition of the Pulse Group. We, of course, had one a little earlier tonight at 7:30. And you can watch that right now on fox2detroit.com and on Fox Local. But we're bringing on Congresswoman Debbie Dingell to react to this, and Brigadier General Mike McDaniel to really talk about the possible military aspect of this story as well.
No, certainly. And I think both of those people have a lot to say about what it is that the president's going to say. And, you're going to hear from the president, as we say, in about 5 minutes. The president usually for these primetime addresses is on time. I can tell you that having covered this president for many years, the afternoon engagements usually don't take place on time. And that, by the way, was the case with President Biden also. This is a presidential thing, not a Trump thing or a Biden thing. These presidents in the middle of the day when they're on their stops, they're always late. I mean, they're infamously late. But when it comes to these primetime addresses, they're usually right on time and spot on time. So I think he'll address the nation for about 15 minutes. I think it'll be a progress report. I think it'll be a well-prepared speech. He has speechwriters that, from what I understand at the White House, have helped him craft this particular talk. And so this will be a progress report, but a rather optimistic look. And you can't ignore the fact that in the past 48 hours, this president has been criticized heavily for his comments on social media about Rob Reiner and his family's death. So clearly, there's some PR mopping up that needs to be done, and this president hopes to perhaps use his plans to do so.
Absolutely, and you look at those comments, roundly criticized by Republicans and Democrats alike, and quite frankly, they were disgusting because they're blaming Trump, talking about Trump derangement syndrome in the wake of a man who was allegedly murdered along with his wife by his own son.
Well, and a son who is suffering from a very public episodes of drug use. And this would be a perfect opportunity for the president to really kind of talk about how he's ramping up what he believes is the war on drugs. And if anything, to make a connection in that way, even if so could be considered cheap, would have been more appropriate than the comments he made. Absolutely.
And we see the slate pop up, and we're going to hold on this for a second, but keep talking, Root, because I do want to see when the president takes the podium. But the fact that this network slate is coming up is a good sign. I think that it is going to start on time. Again, roughly 3 minutes to this speech. And I do want to bring this up as well, is again speculation about ramped up tensions with Venezuela. It's still running rampant at this point. The House did reject resolutions to limit the President Trump's campaign against Venezuela and drug cartels. So not entirely surprising. The House the Republicans control the House and the Senate. Probably wasn't going to get anywhere, but again, just notable as we wait for this speech.
Yeah, and certainly, I think because Venezuela has been in the headlines so much, people are talking about it and presuming that he'll be addressing it in large form. But I really do believe that this president is not going to talk exclusively about Venezuela. I think he's really going to be talking about the economy, because when it comes down to it, James Carville said it best during the Clinton years, it's the economy, stupid. I mean, the bottom line is this. The president is a smart man. He knows, and he has his hand on the pulse of America. And he knows that the polls, for the first time in many months, show the president is polling below the 40% mark. And that is something this president takes seriously, and I can tell you right now, isn't happy about. So certainly presenting a more rosy, optimistic picture about this country and the plans moving forward, critically important.
And you bring up the economy, Roop, and I think that's such an important point, because as we've seen in several elections, the economy is what drives voters to the polls. They're not happy about the economy, or on the flip side, maybe they are happy about the economy and where it's headed. It's people vote a lot of times with their pocketbook, because let's be honest, that's what impacts them the most directly.
And I'll tell you right now that the president essentially in the last 2 weeks saying that there's no such thing as the affordability crisis and it's fake news and made up, has been addressed by his Republican cabinet, who've told him, look, well, we're seeing the polling numbers indicate that people are concerned about the economy. It's something you should address and have to address. And the president does have plans. In fact, I bet you he's going to talk about manufacturing and manufacturing plans moving forward into 2026 that will then spur more jobs. I know he'll talk about the tariffs, and he'll likely address the short-term pain of the tariffs, but the long-term effects that he believes will be good.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point too, because because it goes back to what we talked about with campaigns in the past, Roop, where you can't tell people that there isn't a problem when they're feeling that there is a problem. And you looked at what happened in 2024, where Democrats were saying there's no problem at the border. There isn't an affordability problem. And the same can be said about President Trump and Republicans right now as well. You offer solutions, maybe, don't necessarily say, you're not seeing a problem
Yeah,
here.
when President Biden and Kamala Harris came on the stage, the national stage, and showed us charts about how the economy was doing well, that didn't help anyone who was
No.
struggling to feed their kids. And this is the same mistake that this president shouldn't want to make. And so we'll see how that works moving forward.
And we're hearing that the special report is starting now. I would have to imagine that means we are very, very shortly going to see this slate go away here on the feed that we're seeing, and see President Trump walk up to the podium or in the Oval Office, wherever he's expected to address the nation from. And again, all eyes are on this right now, Roop. And that sounds cliche, but it's absolutely true.
Look, the president understands that this address having to come on at 9 o'clock is the reason he placed it squarely at 9 o'clock, is because most people are home. Most people are they'll get plenty of hours ahead of this to promote this appearance. He knows how important it is that this message, whatever it is heard traditionally over the course of all the years of television. A 9 p.m. address from the White House is something that the entire country, whether it be on YouTube, on TikTok, or on Twitter, or on ABC, NBC, CBS, or Fox, they're going to be watching, and they're going to be watching it in large numbers, because the message that he has today has to resonate with audience that really spans the age groups, right? That's really, really important.
And it's interesting looking at the various network coverage, and it's a lot of what we've been talking about. And as we see him, there he is. We will take this live.
Good evening, America. 11 months ago, I inherited a mess, and I'm fixing it. When I took office, inflation was the worst in 48 years, and some would say in the history of our country, which caused prices to be higher than ever before, making life unaffordable for millions and millions of Americans. This happened during a Democrat administration, and it's when we first began hearing the word affordability. Our border was open, and because of this, our country was being invaded by an army of 25 million people, many who came from prisons and jails, mental institutions, and insane asylums. They were drug dealers, gang members, and even 11,888 murderers, more than 50% of whom killed more than one person. This is what the Biden administration allowed to happen to our country, and it can never be allowed to happen again. We had men playing in women's sports, transgender for everybody, crime at record levels with law enforcement, and words such as that just absolutely forbidden. We had the worst trade deals ever made, and our country was laughed at from all over the world. But they're not laughing anymore. Over the past 11 months, we have brought more positive change to Washington than any administration in American history. There's never been anything like it, and I think most would agree. I was elected in a landslide, winning the popular vote and all 7 swing states and everything else, with a mandate to take on a sick and corrupt system that really just took the wealth from people and crushed the dreams of the American people. For the last 4 years, the United States was ruled by politicians who fought only for insiders, illegal aliens, career criminals, corporate lobbyists, prisoners, terrorists, and above all, foreign nations, which took advantage of us at levels never seen before. They flooded your cities and towns with illegal aliens. They decimated your hard-earned savings. They indoctrinated your children with hate for America. They just released a level of violent felons that we had never seen to prey on innocent. They caused war. They caused mayhem. They caused a horrible situation all over the globe. But now you have a president who fights for the law-abiding, hardworking people of our country, the ones who make this nation run, who make this nation work. And after just 1 year, we have achieved more than anyone could have imagined. Starting on day one, I took immediate action to stop the invasion of our southern border. For the past 7 months, 0 illegal aliens have been allowed into our country, a feat which everyone said was absolutely impossible. Do you remember when Joe Biden said that he needed Congress to pass legislation to help close the border? He was always blaming Congress and everyone else. As it turned out, we didn't need legislation. We just needed a new president. We inherited the worst border anywhere in the world, and we quickly turned it into the strongest border in the history of our country. In other words, in a few short months, we went from worst to best. We're deporting criminals, restoring safety to our most dangerous cities. Just take a look at Washington, D.C. It's at levels of safety that we've never seen before. And they decimated the bloodthirsty foreign drug cartels. We did that all by ourselves with our people, and we're so proud of it because they were poisoning and destroying our population. Drugs brought in by ocean and by sea are now down 94%. We have broken the grip of sinister woke radicals in our schools, and control over those schools is back now in the hands of our great and loving states where education belongs. After rebuilding the United States military in my first term, and with the addition we are adding right now, we have the most powerful military anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. I've restored American strength, settled 8 wars in 10 months, destroyed the Iran nuclear threat, and ended the war in Gaza, bringing for the first time in 3,000 years peace to the Middle East, and secured the release of the hostages, both living and dead. Here at home, we're bringing our economy back from the brink of ruin. The last administration and their allies in Congress looted our Treasury for trillions of dollars, driving up prices and everything at levels never seen before. I am bringing those high prices down and bringing them down very fast. Let's look at the facts. Under the Biden administration, car prices rose 22%, and in many states, 30% or more. Gasoline rose 30 to 50%. Hotel rates rose 37%. Airfares rose 31%. Now, under our leadership, they are all coming down and coming down fast. Democrat politicians also sent the cost of groceries soaring, but we are solving that too. The price of a Thanksgiving turkey was down 33% compared to the Biden last year. The price of eggs is down 82% since March, and everything else is falling rapidly. And it's not done yet, but boy, are we making progress. Nobody can believe what's going on. Here are just some of the efforts that we have underway. You will see in your wallets and bank accounts in the new year. After years of record-setting falling incomes, our policies are boosting take-home pay at a historic pace. Under Biden, real wages plummeted by $3,000. Under Trump, the typical factory worker has seen a wage increase of $1,300. For construction workers, it's $1,800. For miners, we're bringing back clean, beautiful coal. It's $3,300. And for the first time in years, wages are rising much faster than inflation. Remember that. The wages, just look at it. Wages are going up much faster than inflation. How big is that? Very importantly, there are more people working today than at any time in American history, and 100% of all jobs created since I took office have been in the private sector. Think of that. 100% of all jobs have been in the private sector rather than government, which is the only way to make a country powerful and great. This historic trend will continue. Already, I've secured a record-breaking $18 trillion of investment into the United States, which means jobs, wage increases, growth, factory openings, and far greater national security. Much of this success has been accomplished by tariffs. My favorite word, tariffs, which for many decades have been used successfully by other countries against us, but not anymore. Companies know that if they build in America, there are no tariffs, and that's why they're coming home to the USA in record numbers. They're building factories and plants at levels we haven't seen, AI, automobiles. We're doing what nobody thought was even possible, not even remotely possible. There has never, frankly, been anything like it. 1 year ago, our country was dead. We were absolutely dead. Our country was ready to fail, totally failed. Now, we're the hottest country anywhere in the world. And that's said by every single leader that I've spoken to over the last 5 months. Next year, you will also see the results of the largest tax cuts in American history that were really accomplished through our great, big, beautiful bill, perhaps the most sweeping legislation ever passed in Congress. We wrapped 12 different bills up into one beautiful bill. That includes no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors. Under these cuts, many families will be saving between $11,000 and $20,000 a year, and next spring is projected to be the largest tax refund season of all time. Because of tariffs, along with the just passed One Big Beautiful Bill, tonight I am also proud to announce that more than 1,450,000, think of this, 1,450,000 military service members will receive a special, we call Warrior Dividend before Christmas, a Warrior Dividend. In honor of our nation's founding in 1776, we are sending every soldier $1,776. Think of that. And the checks are already on the way. Nobody understood that one until about 30 minutes ago. We made a lot more money than anybody thought because of tariffs, and the bill helped us along. Nobody deserves it more than our military, and I say congratulations to everybody. And by the way, we now have record enlistment in our military, and last year we had among the worst recruitment numbers in our military's history. What a difference a year makes. In addition, I'm doing what no politician of either party has ever done, standing up to the special interests to dramatically reduce the price of prescription drugs. I negotiated directly with the drug companies and foreign nations, which were taking advantage of our country for many decades, to slash prices on drugs and pharmaceuticals by as much as 400, 500, and even 600%. In other words, your drug costs will be plummeting downward. And I used the threat of tariffs to get foreign countries who would never have done it to pay the cost of this giant dollar reduction. They stopped ripping us off, and it began as of 4 days ago. There has never been anything like this in the history of our country. Drugs have only gone up, but now they'll be going down by numbers never conceived possible. It's called Most Favored Nation. And no president has ever had the courage or ability to get this done until now. The first of these unprecedented price reductions will be available starting in January through a new website, TrumpRx.gov. And these big price cuts will greatly reduce the cost of health care. I'm also taking on the gigantic health insurance companies that have gotten rich on billions of dollars of money that should go directly to the people. The money should go to the people, that's you, so they can buy their own health insurance, which will give far better benefits at much lower costs. It will be far better health insurance. The current Unaffordable Care Act was created to make insurance companies rich. It was bad health care at much too high a cost. And you see that now in the steep increase in premiums being demanded by the Democrats, and they are demanding those increases, and it's their fault. It is not the Republicans' fault. It's the Democrats' fault. It's the Unaffordable Care Act, and everybody knew it. Again, I want the money to go directly to the people so you can buy your own health care. You'll get much better health care at a much lower price. The only losers will be insurance companies that have gotten rich, and the Democrat Party, which is totally controlled by those same insurance companies. They will not be happy, but that's okay with me because you, the people, are finally going to be getting great health care at a lower cost. Another major focus is the cost of energy. For years, the radical left Democrats exploited the green energy scam as an excuse to funnel many billions of dollars into their own massive slush funds as their energy restrictions drastically drove up prices, and they drove them up at record levels. Electricity costs surged 30 to 100% under Biden, and the typical family lost $5,000 to $10,000 in higher energy costs. Think of that, $5,000 to $10,000 you lost. On day one, I declared a national energy emergency. Gasoline is now under $2.50 a gallon in much of the country. In some states, it, by the way, just hit $1.99 a gallon. And within the next 12 months, we will have opened 1,600 new electrical generating plants, a record, and it's a record that won't be beaten by practically, I would say, by anybody, or certainly not very soon. Prices on electricity and everything else will fall dramatically. The Democrat inflation disaster, again, the worst in the history of our country, also robbed millions of Americans of home ownership and indeed the American dream. The yearly cost of a typical new mortgage increased by $15,000 under Democrat rule. In 11 months, we've already gotten that annual cost down by $3,000, and it's coming down a lot lower. Wait till you see. The numbers are going to be shocking. And I'll soon announce our next chairman of the Federal Reserve, someone who believes in lower interest rates by a lot, and mortgage payments will be coming down even further. Early the new year, and you will see this, in the new year, I will announce some of the most aggressive housing reform plans in American history. A major factor in driving up housing costs was the colossal border invasion. We have never been invaded. This is the worst thing that, frankly, in my opinion, the worst thing that the Biden administration did to our country is the invasion at the border. The last administration and their allies in Congress brought in millions and millions of migrants and gave them taxpayer-funded housing while your rent and housing costs skyrocketed. Over 60% of growth in the rental market came from foreign migrants. At the same time, illegal aliens stole American jobs and flooded emergency rooms, getting free health care and education paid for by you, the American taxpayer. They also increased the cost of law enforcement by numbers so high that they are not even to be mentioned. For the first time in 50 years, we are now seeing reverse migration as migrants go back home, leaving more housing and more jobs for Americans. In the year before my election, all net creation of jobs was going to foreign migrants. Since I took office, 100% of all net job creation has gone to American-born citizens, 100%. In the end, government either serves the productive, patriotic, hardworking American citizen, or it serves those who break the laws, cheat the system, and seek power and profit at the expense of our nation. Look at Minnesota, where Somalians have taken over the economics of the state and have stolen billions and billions of dollars from Minnesota and indeed from the United States of America. And we're going to put an end to it. For so long as before my election, the vast majority of good and decent Americans were forced to watch as corrupt politicians plundered the halls of power, exploited our taxpayers, and pillaged every system that makes civilized society function. But not anymore, and you see that every day, not anymore. We're putting America first, and we are making America great again. Very simple. We are making America great again. Tonight, after 11 months, our border is secure. Inflation is stopped. Wages are up. Prices are down. Our nation is strong. America is respected, and our country is back, stronger than ever before. We're poised for an economic boom, the likes of which the world has never seen. Soon we will host the World Cup and the Olympics, both of which I got. But most importantly, we will celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. There could be no more fitting tribute to this epic milestone than to complete the comeback of America that began just 1 year ago. When the world looks at us next year, let them see a nation that is loyal to its citizens, faithful to its workers, confident to its identity, certain to its destiny, and the envy of the entire globe. We are respected again like we have never been respected before. To each and every one of you, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. God bless you all.
And there you have it, President Trump addressing the nation for about 19 minutes, started right about on time, announcing more than 1.4 million military service members, getting warrior dividends, he called them, of $1,776. And he says those checks are on the way. He also says that a new Federal Reserve chair will be announced soon, and is also planning housing reform as well.
Yeah, he also was not shy about basically delivering a scathing report of how he believes the Biden White House left him with a mess that he has since cleaned up, talking about the economy, bragging about how things are better off. He talked about inflation going down. I can tell you right now that officially inflation is lower than it was under the Biden White House, although it is right now trending upwards, closer to 3%. Up since August, back in September when they last checked it. But inflation is something that's a tremendous challenge that he's going to have to continue to take a look at. When he says that food prices are on their way down, that's something that he talked about with the turkey dinners. Certainly for that, you could say and argue that that's true, but there are other price concerns.
Yeah.
Gas prices, interestingly enough, according to AAA, he's right on the money with that. Gas prices are averaging closer to about $2.90 a gallon. So he's basically bragging about that while excoriating President Biden and mentioning him by name at least a dozen times in his critique.
Much of that first part of the speech was actually spent really criticizing the Biden administration, blaming them for the border crisis, blaming them for the inflation and the economic issues, that saying that he inherited a mess when he joined. Really spent a lot of that speech, most of that speech, touting his administration's accomplishments this year.
When you talk about the accomplishments, you do have to say, objectively speaking, as we do on this program and on all our programs here in Fox 2, the border was a crisis. The border was a problem under President Biden. And we know that Vice President Kamala Harris essentially came out during her campaign and said, look, I wasn't responsible necessarily for the border and its handling. I was responsible for finding the causes of the border crisis, not necessarily solving the crisis itself. But you can squarely say that the Biden administration did have more of an open door policy and did allow more people to come in, many of whom can be considered dangerous. So this president has taken a lot of pride in sealing that border up, and has, as we talked to the Border Police, the Border Patrol chief, Michael Banks, just in the last few days, talking exclusively to Fox 2, they have a lot of stock, and they take a lot of stock in controlling that border, something that he says the Biden administration simply wasn't doing. And in turn, talking about why that actually is helping with the drugs that, of course, were coming in large numbers. But he also did talk about Venezuela. He alluded to that. But as we talked about right before we went on, Aaron, I think this really was more of a progress report for this president to defend his record in the last few months.
Well, our coverage does continue coming up in just a few minutes on Live Now from Fox. Of course, the news at 10, the Edge at 11. And again, we're going to have a live pulse, a bonus episode of The Pulse coming up at around 11:50 based on primetime sliding and everything else. So please make sure you stay tuned for that. Roop, thank you for joining me to just help break down this speech from President Trump. We really appreciate you taking the time.
I appreciate you, Aaron. Good work. Thank you.
Thank you. And that does it for this edition of The Pulse of Politics, a special edition. Have a great rest of your night.